hate to cut y'all off. I know we were vibing.
What? Mid-Brandy Jam? What?
Oh, you know what? Maybe we'll have some time at the end, but we got to get into it. Apple Music, Tidal, Spotify, y'all make sure y'all go sitting up in your room with good old Brandy. That was a nice throwback. We're going to get into it. I'm Ashley, and we're going to have our introduction by Charles Gilford III. He is our Regional Vice President of the West Region. So I'm going to pass it to Charles.
Good afternoon, family. I have to tell you, man, y'all, you cut that vibe a little bit too prematurely. I was not ready for that. I was just up in there y'all remember, this is the 90s bounce right there. But first of all, it's wonderful to meet you all. My name is Charles Gilford. I have the honor of serving as your regional vice president, and really just wanted to welcome everybody. Thank you so much for taking time to join in on a Sunday. It is a critical conversation, and I would be remiss if I did not send you greetings on behalf of our national president, Ray Shackelford, phenomenal leader, and we're so thankful for his leadership and service during these times. So thank you for joining. I would encourage you all right now, if you get a chance, send out this link through your text messages, through your emails, through whatever you need to do to get people on here. This is a critical conversation for a critical time. And with that, I want to make sure you grab your bubbly now. Some of you may, for people like myself, you may have the ministry of Martinelli's. Martinelli's is a wonderful thing, sparkling cider. Some of you, it may be mimosas. Some of you may be virgin mimosas, which turns out to be orange juice. But whatever it is, make sure you grab you drink so we can have this conversation. With that, I will turn it back over.
Awesome. Carla, take it away.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Carla Sanchez, and welcome to the California YPs. We're closing out our National Black Voters Week of Action here for the Urban League Young Professionals. And I just want to shout out to make sure you guys know that we have 3 chapters here representing. We have the Los Angeles Urban League Young Professionals, brought to you by Ashley. And we also have the Sacremento chapter, brought to you by Joanna. Joanna put a high five in the chat for us. And then also myself representing San Diego. So just a quick little update. The reason why we're doing this is in 2020, general elections is less than 50 days away. And with COVID around, it poses a unique situation for democracy. And we just want to make sure that everyone is informed and is prepared for November 3rd. And that's all I have for you guys. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Carla. Thank you, Charles, for joining us today. And thank you to all of you for taking the time out on this Sunday. You might have us up on one screen and church playing on the next. We don't fault you for that. Praise the Lord. Without further ado, we're going to get straight into it. Our first topic is the census. I don't know if you all have seen the latest update that they have extended the census deadline. Prior to that, it would have been 3 days from now, so September 30th. And we have nobody else better to talk about the census than Ms. Carmen Taylor-Jones today. She is a native of California. She's a former Chief District Director of the 37th Congressional District for the U.S. House of Representatives. She is also a business owner of Highcon Consulting, which specializes in community engagement, something such as what we are doing today. And today, Ms. Taylor-Jones serves as the 2020 Census Program Manager for Black Women for Wellness. So I've heard Ms. Carmen Taylor-Jones speak about the census, honey, and you would think she birthed it the way she is so passionate about it. So I'm going to pass it to Ms. Carmen. Take it away. I don't know if you're talking, Ms. Carmen, but you're on mute. Hold on, y'all. Y'all know how technical difficulties work. Let's vibe out for a second until we get that together. Okay, sorry, I had to cut y'all again. Okay, you know what? We're gonna come back to Ms. Carmen, and let's move on to proposition presentations by none other than Janiqua.
Yes. Yeah, you got it right. Hey, everybody. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. So I am here representing much. I am a past YP. I am the current president for the Urban League of San Diego County Guild, and I am also the event manager for San Diego Melanin. So as you might or might not know, we've got 12 propositions on the California ballot this year. We will be focusing our campaign on 6 of them. These 6 that we're focusing on have a tremendous tremendous implications for our community. As well, they're related to the mission pillars of the Urban League for equity for Black people in the areas of housing, education, employment, and health. So what are these 6 that we will be focusing on? The first is Proposition 15, which is the tax on commercial and industrial properties for education and local government funding initiative. Prop 15 would amend the California state constitution to require commercial and industrial properties, except for those that are zoned for commercial agriculture, to be taxed at their current market value and not that what they're currently being taxed at, which is their purchase price value. The additional tax revenue from this proposition could increase the value of funding for public schools, community colleges, and local government services from anywhere between $6.5 and $11.5 billion. The next proposition is Proposition 16, which would repeal Proposition 209 Affirmative Action Amendment. Back in 1996, California voters passed Proposition 209, which abolished affirmative action strictly along the lines of race, sex, color, ethnicity, as well as country of origin. Prop 16 is a California state constitutional amendment that will allow government agencies as well as institutions such as the UC system to consider those factors in hiring and admitting. Prop 17 is the Voting Rights Restoration for Persons on Parole Amendment. Prop 17 is also a state constitutional amendment that would allow persons on parole for felony convictions to be eligible to vote. Now, as most of us know, or I shouldn't make assumptions, but hopefully we know that people who are currently incarcerated do not have the right to vote. But what you might not know is that once they have been released from prison, they still are not eligible to vote because they are on parole. So what this proposition would do would allow those people to be eligible to vote, to register to vote, once they have left the penitentiary system. Oftentimes, parole can last for several years after someone has been reintegrated into society. Prop 18 is the primary voting of 17-year-olds amendment. Prop 18 would allow for 17-year-olds to vote in primary elections and special elections if they'll be 18 years old by the time of the correlating general election. Prop 20 is another one that we'll be focusing on, which is the Criminal Sentencing, Parole, and DNA Coalition Initiative. Now, this one is, Collection Initiative. This one has quite a few facets, and we'll go into it later. Prop 20 would restrict parole for certain offenses considered nonviolent. This would also give prosecutors the discretion to determine if some nonviolent crimes can be considered felonies or misdemeanors. Something to keep in mind for this proposition is the term wobblers, which means that it's up to the prosecuting attorney to determine if this nonviolent offense is a felony or a misdemeanor. And one very key point to this one is that collection of DNA for those accused would be required in these instances. And the last one that we'll be focusing on is Local Rent Control Initiative. Prop 21 is an initiative to expand local government's authority to enact rent control on certain properties. These properties are restricted to properties over 15 years old and would only apply to landlords who own 2 or more properties. And as all of us here in California know, rent is high, and also quite a few people here or within our communities are overrepresented in the renting population. So something to keep in mind too is that we're going to have teach-ins that will start on October 1st that we'll be hosting, and we'll have representatives from each of those propositions, whether it be the yes or the no side, to be speaking at those. And so we invite you to keep an eye out on our website as well as our social media for the dates of those initiatives, or rather those teach-ins that'll be coming up. Please keep your eye out on those social medias. I have to give a shout out to our graphic designers. We worked with several California graphic designers to come up with specific logos for each of the propositions to help you have a visual to keep them in mind for when you're going to the ballot or when you're looking at it to know what it's related to. And then also a shout out to our SD Melanin graphic designer, Kiana, who designed the overall look, which is tremendous. So anyhow, in closing, I would just like to say, keep a lookout for those dope graphics that will be coming out on either the San Diego or the SD Melanin website, our social media. We'll also be sharing those with the local YP chapters. And then also a shout out to the coalition who San Diego or SD Melanin compiled to bring you this information, these graphics. This coalition was compiled of or community organizations, as well as companies and creatives in the California area to make sure that basically our population and our community is informed and that we know what we're talking about when we go to the ballots. We at SD Melanin are excited to partner with the Cali YPs to help make sure that our communities are informed and equipped to express our Black joy, to execute with force our Black vote, and to make sure that our Black power is known and felt. So thank you. I'll turn it back over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Janiqua. We appreciate you for being here. I think we didn't say this at the beginning, but let's make this conversational. So if you have questions, there is a Q&A box at the bottom. Please feel free to drop your questions there and we can make sure we answer those for you. All right. So we're going to move right on, moving into federal versus state elections. Our very own Joanna of the Sacremento YP chapter will bring forth that info.
Hello. I am Joanna. I am the president of the Greater Sacramento Urban League Young Professionals, and I'm so grateful that you guys are here this morning. I wish I was as awesome as the person who's going to bring you this information, but I am not. I'm passing the torch to Alana Matthews, Esquire. She's amazing, a phenomenal human being, and she's done just about everything you could think of when it comes to advocacy and justice. She currently works in the legislature on one of the committees, and she's actually working on getting her own organization started for justice. So she is a champion for the cause. She understands what we're dealing with when it comes to understanding the system. And I just want to pass the torch to her. So if you guys can offer a warm welcome to Alana Matthews, I'd be so grateful.
I'm muted, so I know to unmute myself. Thank you very much, Joanna. I'm so happy to be here. So I'm going to do like a basic overview. I'm assuming since you all are professionals, you remember your civics classes, either from cartoons that you watch on Saturday morning or in grade school or high school, about how we have three branches of government: a federal, a legislative, a judiciary, and an executive. And both of those are mirrored in both the federal and the state system. So when we have our elections, usually you have one ballot. So there might just be different offices, but you will usually see on your ballot the federal and the state elected positions. And at the federal level, we know that that's our president and for the executive office. And then there's the legislature, which is made up of Congress, which is the House of Representatives, and then the Senate. And the House of Representatives is based on how big the population is of a particular region, whereas the Senate is basically 2 for every state. So then you have your judiciary, but we know that judges are appointed by the president and we don't vote on those. However, in the state system, we do vote sometimes. You have an option, at least for the appellate and the Supreme Court justices. The Supreme Court justices usually are appointed by the governor, but they have a term. So when you look at your local Superior Court judges in California, it's usually a term of 6 years. And so every 6 years they're on the ballot. They're rarely contested because for most elected bodies, incumbents are supported, even if they are of a different political party. I think generally electeds just feel once incumbents are taken out, it's open season for all incumbents. So they have a vested interest to all kind of get together and make sure nobody is taken out who's already in the office. So on the federal level, I'm sure people have heard the term midterm elections. And so midterm refers to the middle of the presidential term. So every 4 years, we will elect a president, and we really need a new president right now. So what's going to happen is most of your midterm elections, you can switch up a little bit on your senator. So that way, if the president is not doing what you want, you have an opportunity, because all the three branches are like oversight. So it's not so much if the president is not doing, but it gives people a chance to elect new members of the legislature if they feel like that needs to be a difference as a check and balance on the executive branch. So this year, you should be having on your ballot some congressional seats, as well as the presidential ballot on the federal side. And then on the state side, you will not be electing a governor, because in California, we all have the same governor. So I don't know if this is a group that's across the nation or if it's just within California. But you should be getting, in some cities, the mayor. You should also have some assembly members. They have staggered terms because sometimes your assembly member or a senator, it's the same concept in the state of California, whereas you have so many by your population assembly members. But then for our California Senate, you basically only have a fixed number. So every county has fixed representation, or every district, not county, every district. So you have those on the ballot, because sometimes people retire, sometimes they move up, they may become a federal officer. So whenever that seat is open, you'll be voting for that. So you're going to have on your ballot the federal positions to vote for. You're going to have state positions to vote for, elected officials. And then on our state ballot, there are laws, which you just heard about, the propositions. So there's going to be a number of those, and I see they have been posted in the chat. So someone did ask for that, and I will have another plug and say no on 20. I'm a former deputy DA, so I worked very closely in the criminal justice system, and there's a lot of things I can give a comment on, but I think no is definitely worth saying no to. So those are like the main differences, and why it's important is that I know some people feel like, well, that's the federal level, I can't reach it. I don't make my voice won't make a difference, but it actually will. Because as we see now, this is a perfect example with the Supreme Court confirmation. So because we have so many Republican senators, the Democratic senators, it doesn't matter if they don't support the Supreme Court nomination. It's going to be, there's enough votes within the Republicans. So that means that everybody who has voted, if they didn't pay attention in the last midterm to come out and vote, then they have essentially given that power to those Republican senators who can now confirm the new Supreme Court nominee. The presidential election, we know how important that is. I mean, the fact that you all are engaged in this organization shows how woke you are. But just one thing that I want to break down to you, I believe it was Michigan that Trump won by 11,000 votes. And that is not a lot of people. There are some universities that have more than 11,000 students. So when people don't vote and they think it doesn't matter, and that's throughout the state, you can narrow it down. And if everybody remembers the race in Georgia with Stacey Abrams, it was less than that. It was, I think it was like a little over 1,000. It was a very, very, very small margin. And so it's not just about registering to vote. You have to, like, your little brothers, your little sisters, your nieces and nephews, your friends, your sorority sisters, the elderly, you got people in the nursing home. Go and figure figure out if someone can come there and vote if there's a way, because every voice counts. And so on the federal level, even though we have the Electoral College, if you don't vote, that one little dot, it counts. So just think about in your college days when you want to go get something to eat and you can't get enough money and you scraping and looking in the car. Okay, I know I'm not the only person who ate ramen noodles, right? You trying to get a piece of, if you have pizza by the slice and it's like $2 and you know with taxes $2.25, you're like, okay, I got $2. Okay, there's a dime there, there's a nickel there. That's how voting is. Like you trying to scrape and you know, like, I need to pick you up. I need to get your vote to the poll. I need to get you to the poll. I need to take, okay, we doing distance church. How is Mother Jones gonna get to the poll? Who's gonna pick up her ballot? We have to make sure. So just know that because it's so important, and given the political environment that we are in, you know, everyone's saying Trump has to be beat by a landslide. And it's true. I mean, even if he is beat by a landslide, you know, he's still gonna fight it. So I'm an attorney and I'm going to be a legal monitor because I feel like we're back in the 50s and people's vote will not count. So I have to stand outside and make sure it's counted. And then when they carry the boxes away, we have to do that. And so you may not necessarily have to be an attorney, but you can be a poll worker, whatever you can do, especially in the battleground states. Call your family from out of town, make sure they're registered. If they live in Nevada, Michigan, Arizona, any of those battleground states, make sure they vote. And then on the state level, because really all politics is local, find out who your local representative is. Because when you have on the ballot now, it's Prop 16, and that's dealing with affirmative action. Well, this was actually like a resolution that was passed. And so you need to know that your assembly members support that, because politics is a lot about money. So they don't want to upset, you know, do you have a moderate? Are there some people in your districts that are, you know, saying Blue Lives Matter and they're really supporting law enforcement? So you need to educate yourself on how your representatives, how they vote, what their voting record is, and then on the propositions, because those are going to directly affect you more directly, because it's in the state of California, it's going to happen. And what happens is with this new collection of, I'm just going to give you an example of Prop 20 with state, it's DNA collection. So that means you get put into a system, and we all watch First 48 or whatever crime show where they do a little swap. You're just in the system now, and the system is not perfect. So why have them, or maybe it's your cousin or somebody else who's acting crazy, but your profile is close enough now. So we're just exposing more people to be put into the system. And we know what happens when Black people get put into the system. That's another way of controlling our bodies and controlling our vote, because that's where the power lies. It's very incremental, but the power lies in voting. So you have the state. I mean, this session is really on federal and state, but also remember local, who your council member is, who your water district is. Because y'all got bills now, right? So you paying your water bill. Did your water bill go up? See, it might be $15 and you didn't think anything about it. Next year, it might be $45. You're like, wait. You need to know who your water district representatives are, your power company, you know, whoever's your utility. They usually have elected board if it's a publicly owned utility. And of course, who's your mayor, who's the county officials, because those people control the budget. In almost every jurisdiction, you know where over 50% of the budget goes? To the police. So that's why you want to be informed. And even though you have the federal system and the state system, you know, the federal system is going to impact you broadly, like in your wages, how you get your Social Security. I mean, like big picture, long term. You can think of your state elections as what's more short term, like what's affecting me right now and my family members and what we're going to be exposed to. For those of you who work in corporations, there's legislation that's been passed that said we need to diversify our corporate boards. And that's bringing more people like me and you, more melanin to the table in corporate boards. So they're not just putting out a statement saying, we support Black lives, but none of your management looks like me. None of your hiring managers. I'm still suffering microaggressions right now. So, you know, it's all important that way. I will end there. And then if there are questions, certainly you can ask me questions now about the federal election. If you just wonder, like, oh, I've always wondered about this, explain that to me. I can handle that. If not, I can wait to the end with general questions and answers. Thank you.
I actually want to jump in real quick and just say, I forgot to point out when I was stating these props that Dr. Shirley Weber, she's one of our assembly people here in San Diego representing District 79. She's responsible for getting that on the ballot too. So FYI, San Diego representatives, or Dr. Shirley Weber is doing her thing.
Well, that's all I have. So I'll turn it back over to the host.
Awesome. Thank you, Alana. Let's keep it going. Voter education. Carla, I'll let you introduce your speaker.
All right. My guest speaker is Dr. Lawana Richmond, and she is here local in San Diego, and she is all about education. She's going to bless us with some information about voting and the tactics and tools that you have available to yourself here in San Diego. Dr. Lawanda, take it away.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to share this information. First of all, how many of you know that you can track your ballot this year? How many of you know how to track your ballot? Because that's really important. So just in case anybody is missing the link, I'm going to put it in the chat so you can share it with your friends. And this is not just for San Diego, this is the whole state of California. And I think that's really important because we know that this is going to be a crazy election, right? How many of you already have your vote plan? Like, you verified your registration, you know when you're going to vote, what you're going to vote for, and how you're going to get your vote in. So my greatest hope is that everyone has figured out a vote plan that excludes the United States Postal Service. And I don't have anything against mail or the post office. I support them. I want them to stay funded and stay alive. But this election is really important. And one way that we avoid problems that we already can pre-anticipate is to find a workaround. This year, you always can mail your ballot in, but early voting, even though on the sites in San Diego specifically, you can cast your ballot as soon as you get it. If your mailman is fast and you get your ballot on October 5th, you can take your ballot to the Registrar of Voters on October 5th. How many of you know what a bottleneck is? So one thing we can do to help make sure that we have the most efficient election possible is not only for us to take ownership of doing this ourselves, but to encourage all of our friends to vote early. We do this, we reduce the strain on the registrars of voters throughout the state, and it helps them certify the election much more quickly. The other thing is voter education, in addition to the forums that are being held by the San Diego County Guild, which I love, by the way. The energy and the information that's available is awesome, but everybody's schedule is different. You have to know that there are other options. Any election, when you're looking at who to vote for judges, a good source, because most of us don't know these judges. We don't know their record, and we don't necessarily have time to do all that research. Look for your local Black Bar Association or your Hispanic Bar Association, because there's usually a convergence of interests. And they will tell you who they recommend, and they will even be so bold as to tell you who they do not recommend. And I consider them very reliable sources, maybe because they've endorsed me as a candidate, but they do their homework, and these are their colleagues. And so they have much more insight. How many of you work with somebody and you know that that person is kind of shady, but everybody else thinks they're great? So who's going to be able to give better insight into that person, right? So I think, it seems like I'm talking to a very informed group. And my biggest hope is that you will also inform your friends. One of the things that I've done for the past few general and primary elections is I've worked as a poll worker, as a precinct inspector. And so I got a chance to see the process. how it works and strategies that worked. So Alana mentioned earlier, take your family. I've been working with local nonprofit organizations, encouraging them to have ballot parties to make sure that the people they know are informed on the issues, but also do a ballot caravan. Make it fun. Get together someplace where you can socially distance and decorate your cars and just make a really good time of it, and head to the registrar or wherever your ballot box drop-off place is and celebrate getting that vote in. Because it's, one way, we want everybody. And there's some people who will only show up to vote if there's a party involved. And we don't have time to worry about, leaving them behind or whatever their philosophy is. We want to make it easy, we want to make it fun, and we want people to feel confident. One of the things that people in my circle have asked me to do is actually make a list of all the propositions, what I think about it, and just give them the list. Because there's some people that don't vote because it's complicated. It's not as easy as you go in, you vote for the president, maybe the governor, and the people that you see on TV. The other thing is the ads are misleading. You have ads where people are crying about losses they're experiencing when the issue isn't even going to impact them. A good example is the commercial for Prop 15 where they have this barber crying about how he's going to lose his shop because the rent's going to go up. But the initiative is for buildings that are $3 million or above. And fact finders have found that that barbershop is in a building that's worth less than $200,000. Yeah, so I encourage all of that. I'll be making my recommendations semi-public, and I will share gladly with anybody who wants them. And I do think that we can't play this year. A lot of the propositions, like the ones that the Guild has decided to focus on, they are, if you think about the injustice of the prison industrial complex and how many brothers and sisters are behind bars right now for things that they didn't even do, for them to finally get out and still be further disenfranchised by not having the right to vote only helps to perpetuate the existing system. When you look at Prop 16, it's an effort that's been going on for over 20 years to overturn an initiative that was worded in a way that even the people who voted for it didn't support its intent and meaning. And being able to unravel it because of how firmly they embedded it in the state charter or constitution, I get confused which, it's not easy to overturn. It takes a really great turnout and people to be motivated. So we have to do that. And then we all hear about like the Russian bots. How many people here are in San Diego and on Black San Diego? I was just in a debate this morning, right before I came here, with someone that I think is probably a Russian bot. Like when I looked, all of her posts were pro-Trump, and she hadn't posted anything about anything other than that before she came to the group. And if you go to her profile, it's trash. But we don't know, because people are posing and presenting themselves in ways that if we don't pay attention, they get us riled up, they get us in our feelings. And, getting us in our feelings is how we got Trump last time. I could go on, but I think you all got the point. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I'll put my information in the chat. Anybody in San Diego, if you live in San Diego school district boundaries, at least look at my website and consider why you should vote for me instead of my opponent. That's all. Thank you.
Dr. Richmond, there's a question in the chat. Can you speak on the importance of prepping people on the props that will be on the ballot and how to create a proactive political agenda rather than reactive?
So what I'll say in terms of prepping people, that's where those lists come in handy, and the ballot parties, because in the ballot parties, you're discussing the initiatives. In some parties, people actually have their ballots in their hand and they're marking them off during the party. But in terms of creating a proactive political agenda, I want to applaud the efforts of the YP generation, because the Black millennials are showing up, and the Gen Xers are Gen Yers and Gen Zers are making great decisions about being educated and asking for what we want. And so a big part of it, so I don't usually get into this, but I'm an Afrofuturist. I read Black sci-fi comic books, and I teach Afrofuturism. And the whole reason that I focus on that is that we spend a lot of time bemoaning the things that have happened and that have passed, rather than learning from them in order to come up with proactive agendas. A lot of times when I ask people what they want, they don't even know what they want. They don't know. They just know they want something different from what they have. And as long as you're focusing all your energy on what you don't want, I'm of the philosophy that that is exactly what you will attract into your life. So, even in terms of the current slate, the reality is the type of people most of us want to vote for don't want to go through this political process. I can tell you as a first-time candidate, it's sloppy, it's messy, it doesn't make sense. A lot of the decisions that get made in spite of the reality or facts of the matter. They get made based on who owes who what, or who they think they can leverage. There are people who have said to me outright they will not endorse me because they don't know how they can leverage me. Yeah, let that sink in. So, we have to know our facts. We need to pay attention to the news. How many of you know who Alice Hoffman is and why her name is important today? We just need to pay attention. And in terms of being proactive, I do creative visualization workshops where I encourage people to look at, because we're very clear on what's not working, but we're not clear on what will work. One of the things I do is an Afrofuturism Dream Tank, and it's all about picking themes and understanding where we are, how we got here, but then where do we want to get to so that we can make decisions today and take actions today and engage in behaviors today that will get us to that place we want to get to in the future. We can't get there only looking back. I have the Sankofa bird on my shirt, and in most of what I do, because it's how I live my life, and it's all about the unity of the past, the present, the future, and being active. So the best thing I can say about all of that is to keep your head. Don't let people distract you. If you know the difference between right and wrong, don't let someone with a tearjerker commercial or someone with some facts that you don't have any way of verifying convince you that it's raining when they're really peeing on you. We good?
So you're gonna drop the mic on us like that. That's how you're gonna end it? Okay. All right, we caught it. Okay. All right. Well, I don't know if you want to get to it now or maybe come back to it during Q&A, but there were quite a few of us that don't know who Alice. I did not catch the last name, but we don't know who that is. So it seems like it's not a good thing, or maybe it is. I don't know, but maybe you can educate us really quickly.
Janiqua, do you want to educate them on that one?
She's the president of the California kind of district of the NAACP.
I remember we talked about this in that last meeting, and so so just some context for those of you who are on the line. At the first guild meeting we had last weekend, we were going through the propositions, and I can actually make some of this, the slides I shared in that meeting available. But Alice, I don't remember her last name, she is the president of the California NAACP, and to support one of the propositions, the people in support of that, or who created that proposition, donated quite a bit of money to her campaign to get her backing. And it's not in the best interest of our community at all.
She has a track record. So she's a paid political consultant. And when I say paid, I mean well-paid political consultant. And she typically uses her title and position as the leader of the California State Conference of NAACPs to oppose measures that are not in our best interest. And because of her title and her position, people who look like us take it as gospel. There are a lot of articles about it, and Yeah. She's, yeah, that's the, you know, not all skin folk is kinfolk.
Can I just add on to that? Because you have to be careful. You may see something that says Black Chamber or Black Brotherhood, or even, you might see a church or faith leaders that you may be familiar with. And so a lot of times they may be so well paid that they can spread out some of the money, because that's a way that it works. It's just like, oh, you represent all the chocolate chips. All right, give this and give it to all the chocolate chips so they can sign on to this.
If I can add to that, I was going to say that's the urgency of us knowing why we're voting the way we're voting, not just because, as you mentioned, we see familiar names on this, but also having the confidence to talk to our friends about it and to talk to our families. Because in this circle, we might be preaching to the choir because, we're here on a Sunday afternoon trying to learn about these proposition ballots or proposition measures and what's going to be on our ballot. But we have a lot of friends and family who are not as engaged as we are. And we need to be able to confidently engage them because, as we mentioned earlier, every vote matters. And we need to be able to talk to them with every ounce of confidence we can get. So.
That's good. Thank you, ladies. I learned something new, and I hope some of you did as well, attendees. So we lost Ms. Carmen Taylor Jones. We were supposed to talk about the census here, but you know what, Black people, if we don't know what else to do, we know how to improvise. So I'm going to do it, okay? If I did not introduce myself earlier, I'm Ashley McCullough. I am the Los Angeles Urban League Young Professionals president. And so the census is important because it defines how money is allocated to our communities, okay? And it only happens every 10 years, okay? So if we do not complete the census currently by the September 30th deadline, so you have 3 days. I was just reading an article that said y'all's president is trying to appeal that extension date, which would have extended the census to October 31st. He never likes anything that he might feel hinder him. So
that's the date he said originally, though. And he went back, but of course we can't expect him to be a man of his word or integrity exactly. Or anything like that. But okay, sorry to interrupt.
No, because that's a good point. He never remembers, anyways, that's why he got to go. But, however, I digress. So right now the date is September 30th. So if you have not completed your census as of September 30th, please, please, please take a minute to complete the questionnaire. It literally probably takes you 2-3 minutes. I see 3 minutes, 3 fingers up. So it costs you nothing to complete this questionnaire. Again, I'm going to go with Dr. Richmond. I think that's who she said, don't trust the U.S. Postal Service right now, right? So if you got it in the mail at this point, it's too late to put it in the mail. Just complete your census online. We can drop that link for you. I see somebody did that. Awesome. To complete it online, it is the same exact questions that would have come in the mail on the piece of paper. If I go back really quickly to the importance of the census, it determines who gets the money and where the money is allocated to, right? So it controls your roads, your schools, your businesses, anything that impacts your community. It determines where the dollars go. So if you have questions and you say, well, the roads are torn up sorry, I was getting ready to get country on y'all. If the roads are torn up in Inglewood, right? And you call your county office and say, we need somebody to fix the roads. Well, they may go and say, well, this percentage of people did not complete the census. Well, we have to allocate money over into Beverly Hills, right? So you've hurt yourself from getting your roads or money allocated to your schools for better resources, to low-income families. So please make sure that you are completing the census because it impacts you and then it impacts your children to come. Again, it only happens every 10 years. So if you don't take the opportunity now, today, we know 2020 has been an abundance of importance for this one time in this decade, where if you don't do anything else, you do everything we're telling you to do because it's just that much important. So we don't know where we will be in 10 years, and we don't know where the government and everybody else will take us in 10 years. So now is the time to take an opportunity to complete that census and be a part of change. And if you don't think about you, just think about everybody else in your community.
And if I can add to that, in addition to the financial contributions that the census kind of helps dictate, it also helps dictate political representation in the Congress. So your congressional representatives, you get representation based on community and population size, which is the census helps to determine. So when we don't complete the census, like I believe in 2010, there were almost 2.5 Black households or individuals who did not complete the census. And so that means that in those communities that we live in, and keep in mind, most communities are still segregated. So we're looking at Black communities who are getting not only less financial, not financial support, but you were getting less of that pie because you didn't complete the census, but also you're getting left out in terms of representation, how many reps you have, and those representatives then go to Congress and create the laws. So it's super important. And the other thing I want to highlight is why it's so important that we complete the census is because on the opposite end, people with very wealthy people who have households in different locations, they can, not legally, but they can and they do complete the census many times for both of those homes. So you have a home in Beverly Hills and you have a vacation home in Florida and maybe you have a home in Aspen. Technically, those are residences, and we all know that the federal government it's a slow moving ship. And so they're not necessarily going to catch that, oh, this one family also completed the census for these other communities. So there's that. And then the other part is prisons and jails. Those house human beings who get counted in the census, but not counted for the communities that they come from. That money doesn't support those communities. They don't support their families. They don't support their offspring or their generations. No, they're supporting those communities that house that locale that houses that prison. So not only are these people being counted to get money, but that money isn't going to our communities, but they're also, those communities are getting extra representation because they technically have, X amount of population that lives there, that lives in that prison, but that population technically lives there. So that locale, that area, they're getting representation, but the people who are in prison, they're not allowed to vote in prison. And 9 times out of 10, when they get on parole, they're not allowed to vote either, which is, again, takes us back to being very tuned in to the propositions that are on the California ballot that would give people who are on parole the right to vote. So again, this is all super interconnected. It's interconnected. And so again, I know we've talked about how we're super engaged on this conversation, but it behooves us to go back to our family members, as many people have said, and say, hey, y'all, it's cute. We can talk about Megan Thee Stallion and Tory Lanez, but also right quick, take 5 minutes to do this little survey right quick. Let's do that. Let's have those conversations. Let's drop that in our family chat, in our group chat, in our group chats rather, to make sure that we really get counted, because it really matters.
Yeah, and they're not, as always, they're not expecting us to show up, right? They're not going to expect us to show up at the polls to vote, and they're not going to expect us to complete our census. So they're already counting us out. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say that even though the deadline was extended again, it was a court ruling, and court rulings can be appealed.
Right.
So even though it's been extended,
it is being appealed right now.
Right.
They are appealing it.
Yeah.
So it could get turned over before the end of this month. So we really need to act like we got 3 days.
Yes, absolutely.
Because we really only got 3 days.
And I just want to kind of jump in a little bit. A lot of other communities are treating it like it's the house on fire. The Latino community, the Asian community, are making extra phone calls and doing a lot of things. And so they have a lot of organizations. And unfortunately, like for instance, the NAACP might be putting efforts and energies into keeping more Black people supporting propositions that will expose them to the system. We don't have as much organized infrastructure to be making phone calls. So not just doing it yourself, but really reaching out to other people and say, did you complete this? Go online. All your, like somebody just mentioned being on social media, and talk to people and be like, are you doing it? Before y'all watch Lovecraft Country, let's take 5 minutes before we do that, or before we talk about it, and let's complete the census.
Let's have a Lovecraft Country count. How about that? Before we watch Lovecraft Country, let's count.
Good. Dr. Richmond.
So I'm gonna try to stop, but I just have to say this is something I haven't seen a lot of, but I think it would behoove us. Right now, we're thinking about infrastructure we don't have, connections we haven't created, ways that we could have been better prepared for this election. I think it would be worthwhile to do a debrief after the election is over and capture lessons learned while they're fresh and come up with some type of long-term strategy or action plan to make sure that at least one or two of the things that I just heard we ain't got, we got.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
I was about to say, actually, too, as far as that for the infrastructure, I know that the Urban League Young Professionals, through the National Urban League Young Professionals, has put forward quite an effort to make sure that there is an awareness for our community to be counted. So for our California chapters, I know I've seen stuff from all of us putting information out there. But even though, as we mentioned, this deadline has quote unquote been extended, I know we have been very dedicated in getting the word out there, and let's just keep at it because we've got 3 days. So.
Yeah, family, just tagging in at the national level, I do want to recognize, all the chapters within the Western region, but, nationally, collectively, y'all been killing it statistically in terms of where things are at related to most census participation versus, in terms of, our African-American, Black American, demographic. This census, we still got some work to do in terms of making sure that we're getting people, to report, but we've done significantly better. So the text messages are working, the emails are working, those kind of communications are working. So let's keep in the battle and make sure, to your point, reach out to folks, just get it done. It's so easy to do. I did it for my whole household, and it took literally like 2.5 minutes. So that simplicity, I think, is going to be critical. But just want to make sure we get some encouraging messaging out there, which is we've been moving the needle, but let's make sure we move it, further to finish strong.
I can say, I know for San Diego County, just real quick, our numbers, I think we were at 70% last time I saw, which is not 100, and obviously that's not our community, but that's all of San Diego County. But I know there's a lot more of our count that could be gotten.
Because I do believe we're more than 3%.
How about that? Yeah.
Awesome. So if you have any other questions, we are just shy of our 1:30 mark. I just hope that you all have found the conversation to be educational and informative. Hopefully you learned something new that you didn't know before you logged on to this Zoom today. And again, I think the action item that we charge each and every one of you with is to spread the word about the census, about the different ways that you can vote, whether that be a mail-in ballot or walk your ballot to a voting place. And make sure we are also capturing our grandparents, right? So let's not leave them out. So, they may not have a computer. Take your computer over to your grandmom and them house and pull up the website and help complete the census for them, okay? 3 days, we have 3 days. Get their ballot for them, take it to a location for them, right? So let's make sure we're doing our part in all areas, not just the millennial group, but we can't forget the older population as well. So all of us have a part to do. And if we don't have any other questions, I'm going to pass it to Lauren to close us out.
All right. Well, I'm just going to say what Ashley just said. Thank you. We really appreciate everyone coming out or staying in rather. COVID's still out there. Staying in and really diving into this election, not just federally, but also on the state and local level. One thing is, remember that after November, there are other elections, and they come much sooner than 4 years. So yes, to the next in 2 years. So please just stay informed, stay engaged. No matter what happens in November, like, we can't just, if Biden wins, we just can't say, oh, our work is done, we're good. We really have to stay engaged. We have to stay informed, and we have to stay active and a part of the political system and decision making within our community and broader. Want to say a special thank you to our speakers. Alana, thank you so much for being here. Dr. Richmond, Charles, and Janiqua, thank you for really sharing your knowledge and your expertise with us. We appreciate it. Please be sure to drop in the chat ways in which we can contact you, the community can contact you in the future, whether it's your email address, your Instas. We really would love to stay in community with you. And then thank you all of our attendees for coming, really asking great questions, staying engaged in the chat, and being a part of this conversation in the movement. Feel free to drop your Instas in the chat too. We'd love to stay connected. And finally, as we've had a lot of conversations around the different propositions that are on the ballot in California this year, we just invite you to stay tuned with SD Melanin. I'm the founder of SD Melanin, and this year we're working on 2 voter education campaigns. One to really drive voters to the polls both this November and beyond, and the second is to really take a deep dive on 6 different California propositions that will, seven different California propositions that will really impact Black and Brown communities. We're not just going to tell you how we think you should vote. We're going to give you a background so you can understand what you're exactly voting on, give you both sides of the coin, and then tell you ways in which we think a particular vote will help the community that looks like us.
Right.
So yeah.
Lauren, you're right. It was 6. You've got 6, and there's a total of 12 on the ballot.
Thank you. So you can follow us on Instagram at SD Melanin, or you can check our website at sdmelanin.com/Black votes. And there we'll have a whole gamut of information that we'll be rolling out on these propositions, what they mean, how they'll impact our communities. And we'll also be hosting teach-ins with experts who are far more knowledgeable than us about those propositions. So stay tuned. Thank you to our co-hosts, Ashley, Carla, and Joanna. She's been hiding out here in the Urban League YP chapters of California. So yeah, thank you. And everyone, keep drinking, whether it's your holy juice or champagne, keep it going, keep the Sunday vibes flowing, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Hi, you all. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, and we'll keep this chat open. So I'll drop SD Melanin's information in the chat, and we'll keep the session going for a little bit so everyone can make sure they get the comments. And also just let you know, you can download the chat if you want for any of our participants.
Oh, that's good.
You can download the chat, so you'll also have all of the resources for as long as you want them. So just check that little 3 dots at the lower right hand of the chat, and there should be an option for you to download the chat.
Sweet. Thank you. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. Hey, Joanna, it is good to virtually meet you. Bye, Charles. Are you heading off the line? No, oh, okay. Joanna, it's good to virtually meet you.
Yes, I mean, I'm so happy that we finally were able to connect.
Yeah, this is awesome. Good to see you guys.
And again, thank you guys so much for what you were able to organize and put together and include. And this is amazing, and I want to see more of this continue to happen.
Yeah.
Well, Joanna, your wish is coming true.
Right.
Yeah.
Proposition teach-in, starting with Proposition 16.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Great. We were just talking about the propositions in the kitchen this morning. So, I mean, I just love this.
Nice.
I think at some point
Ready for me.
mental health.
Oh, what was that
That,
again?
that sounded like Mario. Sounded like somebody was about to play Mario. That's what it sounded like.
I thought I was back to DJing. Go ahead. Keep going.
Lauren, are we still on? Are we still broadcasting, or is this just us?
We're still broadcasting. Y'all
Hey,
can-
everybody. Okay.
y'all
Can we talk with
Mario.
music? Right. But Joanna, you were saying something, and I was wondering what it was.
Sure. I was saying we should do this, continue, of course, to focus on voter education and census education and registration. And I would also like to see us talk about mental health, especially with everything going on. I have some friends that are dealing with the fires. And there's just so much that's affecting us that we need to be able to talk about these things and understand the different types of third-party trauma. Sometimes we have trauma that's inflicted based on our environment with people, but sometimes it's situational, right? So just being able to talk about those things and what we can do to cope. And
it would be cool if the three presidents, if you guys could get together and like do something, like if you're interested in the mental health aspect, thinking about just like, you know, the impact the fires, COVID, earthquakes have had on us specifically in California. Like if you guys could get together and do something like that. Now, mind you, I'm not trying to say, hey, y'all should do this, not being anything aware of what your bandwidth is or whatnot, but it would just be cool to see a connection between the three chapters and doing something related in that area. So just introduction, Joanne, I am a past San Diego YP, but I am currently the guild president for San Diego, but I'm also an advisor for the San Diego YPs. And so whenever you might need to leverage my help for anything, I'm always available. And that's the same for you, Ashley. Danielle and I are quite close, and she's one of my favorite people on the face of the earth. So just FYI.
I'm also going to be leveraging help, and I know Charles and Dr. Richmond may not have offered it, but I'm going to leverage. Hey.
Actually, I wanted to connect you with Dr. Richmond too, because she may have some connections for Prop 16. So FYI, that's who I was telling you about the other night. Lauren, Dr. Richmond, I told her.
Okay, great. Dr. Richmond, I'd love to connect with you offline. I'm going to ping you.
Okay.
And Charles, where do you sit?
So I sit and I was about to say, I'd love to join and connect in any way that I can. So I sit in Denver, which incidentally today just decided to drop to 48 degrees. So we'll talk about that later. The devil is
warming
busy.
is real. Global warming is real.
He is busy, Saints, because it was literally 91 degrees 3 days ago, and then dropped all the way to 40 degrees. I was taking out my trash this morning. I said, the devil is a liar. It is cold.
Where's my coat?
I'm out here. Well, I'm out here, ashy legs and shorts, you know, taking out. Now I'm real embarrassed, and I'm cold. Like, this is just not how we're starting today. This is the devil is busy. But I sit in Denver, so you know, I'm a former chapter president for the Denver Urban League Young Professionals. Was 2.5 terms there, which was a lot of fun. Loved it, and then you know, was able to support as a regional vice president, and then you know, ran this last time around and was successful in being able to take the helm again. So just keeping busy, but functionally I serve as the senior advisor to the mayor of Denver. Out here in Denver, so I'm working on a lot of projects within the city and a lot of COVID response, you know, related things, and some equity projects in the city too. So, you know,
that's so cool. I actually, I have a consulting agency called Create Agency, and we are picking up some equity work for some museums and.
Hey, really?
So
oh, bless. Okay.
We need to talk.
Right, well.
Yes. I run SD Melanin and another brand. And so for SD Melanin, we really focus on curating meaningful content and experiences for young professionals of color. And then the other half of my life is spent, really I like to focus on marketing, branding, and communication strategy. But I've been in equity and I don't even like to say inclusion because I don't want to just be included. Can I? It's more than
thank you.
More than like hey, I'm the Black girl here. So I've been in that work since for the last 10 years. So I still take on projects there. So it's cool.
No, we'll have to get up because I'd be curious to, you know, learn more about, you know, what you do. There's a lot that I'm flipping, you know, in the city and creating measurable efforts around, trying to get equity beyond this, feel good internal, kind of catharsis that you hope a person has into something that's more systematized and actually yields results. So
yes, let's make it policy. Let's make it systemic. Let's put some real things in place besides I stand with Black people. Great. Cool
right,
story.
yeah, I'm like, yeah, cool story, bro.
I like the stuff that's coming out about the economic impact of racism and the fact that it costs money to engage in that behavior, because
Absolutely.
a lot of people think it's real until they understand how it impacts them, even if they're not Black.
Correct.
Janiqua and I, so Janiqua serves as our senior event coordinator and manager at SD Melanin, and we have these conversations all the time about how venues or there are certain contracts we don't get when we're literally come in and saying we'll bring you 5 figures in revenue over a 3 to 4 hour period of you having to do nothing but just do what you normally do.
Just be open.
Just be open.
Be open and bring your servers. We will take care of the rest.
And we're strategic, and we're deciding to come in here because we're setting up this proposal for a time when you're normally dead. So you're open, you're dead, and you're losing money. And they'll still be like, oh, but you're gonna play R&B or hip hop,
right?
Ooh.
But to make it worse, before they see us, they're like, oh, this
Lord.
would be great. This is awesome. Yes, let's do it. And then they see us and they're like, oh, what music are you playing again? Hip hop. Oh.
You said Negro music?
Stop it.
No, I don't know about Negro music. So yeah, there's a very real economic impact to that. And I'm an economist by degree. So I'm just like, do y'all care about, do you care about money? Do you care about money during COVID, during a global pandemic? Do you care about your bottom line? No, you don't? Okay, that's fine.
I've heard people say, oh, as far as capitalism is concerned, it's like, oh, well, people just really care about the green. And I'm like, I can personally attest. That's not the facts. That is not the facts, because our green dollars spend just as much as somebody else's green dollars. And many a times we run into roadblocks because of the color of our skin. It's not got anything to do with our green dollars. And the fact that we can bring them a lot more green dollars than some other people who they are willing to throw their doors open for.
That part.
We're gonna increase your sales by over 300%. And our competitors can't say the same. But it's fine, because you don't want this money. And now I don't want to give it to you. So it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the importance of creating our own, right? Creating our own spaces so that we don't have to even ask you. We just tap our neighbor and say, hey, sister, hey, brother, we have an event. And you're like, oh, yeah, link up anytime,
Yeah, that part.
So
go ahead, Dr. Luana. Sorry.
We have to own the buildings and the land, because what happens is we go into a space, we make it successful, and then they raise the rent. So we have to leave, and they put in somebody else that they think is going to have the same kind of impact. It doesn't, but it doesn't
mess it all up.
That was put together is often devastated by being so hard. But if we own our land, then we can do like other people do and make sure that we create space for the things that we want to see happen, and make ways to nurture it and allow it to grow and develop.
Yeah, owning, that's the key word.
Well,
we don't have to do it
National Day of
individually.
Empowerment is right around the corner, so
A lot of places
is the focus this year. So November 14th, that's my YP plug.
We're doing the National Day of Empowerment coming.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think everyone has had to have time to get the info from the chat.
Right.
I'm currently in a child's closet because I'm at my little cousin's birthday party. And
we appreciate your dedication and loyalty, Lori. Come on, girl.
You are a writer. You are a writer for the movement. Oh my God.
Though. Can I just say, what type of closet is this? Because I was like, it looks very spacious. I live in a California apartment where I think my apartment's about as big as that closet.
This is why I'm at home visiting family in Cincinnati, and like this is like a child's closet that they
That closet's bigger than my kitchen.
For real, girl.
I ain't mad at you though. My dad's from Cincinnati. That's where that's where my family's from. So I ain't mad at you.
Oh, hey.
Hey.
So now I can't stay here longer than like 4 days though. It's like
No, don't go to Lincoln Heights. If you were in Lincoln Heights right now, I'm praying for your salvation and your safety and your security. Because hey, maybe it's changed since I grew up out there. Yeah. Because
mind you, watch what you're saying. This is being recorded, Pastor.
I'm not. My dad's from there, Lincoln Heights. Y'all remember Donny Hathaway's song "The Ghetto"? It was real back in the day. It was super real back in the day. It's flipped because it used to be real.
Like it's weird. Lincoln Heights now, there's still parts that's like, okay, we real out here, but then there are other parts that are like $250,000 or not quarter, $500,000 homes over there now.
Word. Okay, it's clearly been a while since I've been out there, so I have to take a look.
I didn't hang out in Lincoln Heights growing up, but I did want to go to the high school because it was popping.
Yeah, that's facts. That's facts.
The high school was it.
Yeah.
All right, but I'm tired of sitting in this child's closet, so I too am gonna sign off. Thank you all for your
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Good seeing all your faces. Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.